Ambassador Tellus stood alone on the observation deck of her ship, staring at the red light that pulsed in the darkness of space. The warning beacon was old, older than her civilization, older than most species in the known galaxy. It had been blinking for 50,000 years, sending the same message to anyone who came close. Do not enter. Turn back. Death waits beyond. Behind that beacon lay a region of space that every species called the Hollow. 2,000 light years of stars and planets that no one had visited in 500 centuries. The maps showed it as empty. The records described it as dead. But the stories, the old stories that mothers told their children on 1,000 different worlds, spoke of something else entirely. They spoke of monsters. Tellus had heard those stories as a child. Her grandmother had whispered them to her in the dark, her voice trembling with ancient fear. Long ago, the story said, there was a species so violent, so dangerous, that the entire galaxy united against them. 17 elder races, the most powerful civilizations ever known, joined together to fight a single enemy. The war lasted centuries. Billions died. Worlds burned. In the end, the enemy was defeated. They were locked away behind warning beacons, their name erased from every record, their very existence turned into a nightmare, tale to frighten young species away from the path of violence. No one spoke their name. No one remembered what they looked like. After 50,000 years, they had become shadows, ghosts, a warning without a face. And Telos was about to cross into their space. She closed her eyes and thought of her homeworld. She thought of the hospitals overflowing with the sick and dying. She thought of the children whose bodies were failing, whose parents wept beside their beds. The plague had come without warning, spreading through the Serrani collective like fire through dry grass. Their best scientists had worked for years to find a cure. They had failed, but the ancient records, the ones from before the Great Silence, mentioned technologies that no longer existed. Medical knowledge that had been lost when the 17 races fell. Cures for diseases that should have been impossible to survive. The beings beyond the beacon might be dead. Their worlds might be ashes. But if any of their knowledge remained, if any of their secrets could be found in the ruins of their civilization, then Telos had to try. She owed that much to the dying. Her ship's computer spoke in a calm voice. Ambassador, we are approaching the boundary. Current trajectory will take us past the warning beacon in 4 minutes. Do you wish to change course? No, Telos said. Maintain heading. Ambassador, I must remind you that crossing into the quarantine zone is forbidden by galactic law. The penalty is, I know the penalty. Telos turned away from the window. My people are dying. If the law wants to punish me for trying to save them, it can fine me when I return. She walked to the command chair and sat down. Her hands were steady, but her heart beat fast in her chest. She was afraid. Anyone would be afraid. For 50,000 years, the galaxy had lived in terror of what lay beyond those beacons. Every species, every culture, every civilization shared the same fear. But fear would not save her people. Only action could do that. The beacon grew larger on her view screen. Its red light washed over her ship, painting the walls in the color of blood. Warning signals filled the air around her, transmitted on every frequency. In every language known to the galactic community. Danger. Quarantine zone. Do not enter. By order of the Galactic Council. AOL traffic is forbidden. Violators will not be rescued. Telos muted the warnings. She had heard them before, studied them in the archives. They were recorded 50,000 years ago when the war ended. When the enemy was locked away. When the galaxy decided that forgetting was easier than remembering. Her ship crossed the boundary. Nothing happened. She had expected alarms. Weapons fire, some kind of response from ancient defense systems. Instead, there was only silence. The stars beyond the beacon looked the same as the stars behind it. Empty space stretched in all directions, cold and dark and still. Telos let out a breath she hadn't known she was holding. Perhaps the stories were wrong. Perhaps there was nothing here at all. Perhaps the enemy had truly died, and their space was just empty void waiting to be explored. She set course for the nearest star system, a yellow sun that reminded her of home. According to ancient records, this system once held 12 planets. If any ruins remained, they would be there. The journey took 3 days. On the morning of the 4th day, Telos woke to find her computer displaying information she didn't understand. Strange readings filled her screens. Energy signatures that didn't match any known technology. Communication signals in a language her translation systems couldn't decode. She sat up slowly, her blood running cold. The system was not empty. The planets were not dead. As her ship entered the outer reaches of the solar system, she saw what 50,000 years of isolation had created. Cities covered the surfaces of 3 garden worlds, their lights glittering like jewels in the darkness. Ships moved between the planets, hundreds of them, thousands more than she could count. Stations hung in orbit around every world, massive structures that dwarfed anything the Serani had ever built. This was not a graveyard. This was a civilization. A living, thriving civilization that had grown in secret for 500 centuries, while the rest of the galaxy told stories about monsters and warned their children to stay away. Telos stared at her view screen, unable to speak, unable to think. Everything she had been taught, everything she believed, everything the galaxy knew about this place was wrong. The enemy was not dead. They had been waiting. A signal cut through the silence, overriding her communication systems with ease. A voice spoke, calm and clear and terrifyingly polite. Unknown vessel, you have entered restricted space. Under the terms of the Armistice of Soul, you are required to identify yourself and state your purpose. Please respond within 60 seconds or you will be escorted to a holding facility for processing. Telos opened her mouth, but no words came out. Her mind was still trying to process what she was seeing, what she was hearing. The Armistice of Soul. She knew that name. It appeared in the oldest records, the ones that most scholars dismissed as myth. A treaty signed at the end of the Great Silence. A treaty that suggested the war had not ended in victory at all. The voice came again. Unknown vessel, this is your final warning. Identify yourself. Telos found her voice at last. It came out as a whisper, small and afraid. I am Ambassador Telos of the Serani Collective. I come in peace. I come seeking help. Silence. Then, after a long moment, the voice returned. Ambassador Telos, welcome to human space. Please hold your position. An escort will arrive shortly to bring you to the Admiral. Human space. The word echoed in her mind. Humans. So that was what they were called. That was the name the galaxy had erased. The identity that had been buried under 50,000 years of fear and silence. Telos looked at the living worlds before her, at the ships and stations and cities that should not exist, and she felt the weight of history pressing down on her shoulders. She had come seeking answers. She was about to find more than she ever imagined. The escort ship arrived within minutes. It was beautiful in a way that made Telos uncomfortable. Smooth and silver, and moving through space with a grace that spoke of technologies far beyond anything she understood. Her own vessel was considered advanced by galactic standards. Next to this ship, it looked like a child's toy. A young voice came through her speakers. Ambassador Telos, I am Lieutenant Doyun of the Republic Border Fleet. Please follow my ship. Do not deviate from the assigned course. Do not attempt to scan our installations. Do not transmit any signals. These rules are for your protection as much as ours. Tellus did as she was told. She had no choice. Even if she wanted to run, she knew her ship could never escape. The power readings coming from the escort vessel were impossible, off the scale of anything her sensors could measure. The journey took several hours. Dohyun did not speak during this time, and Tellus did not ask questions. She spent the hours watching the view screen, trying to understand what she was seeing. The humans had not simply survived. They had flourished. Every planet they passed showed signs of life. Agricultural worlds covered in golden fields. Industrial stations churning out ships and materials. Research facilities floating in the darkness between worlds. And everywhere, there were people. Human people, living their lives, raising their families, building their future. 50,000 years. The galaxy had locked them away for 50,000 years, expecting them to wither and die. Instead, they had built an empire. Finally, they arrived at a massive station orbiting a blue-green world that reminded Tellus of paintings she had seen of ancient paradise planets. The station was the largest structure she had ever encountered, a ring of metal and glass that could have held millions of inhabitants. Lieutenant Dohyun's ship guided her to a docking port. "Please proceed to the airlock, Ambassador. You will be met by a security team who will escort you to the Admiral." Tellus gathered her courage and walked to the airlock. The door opened with a soft hiss, revealing a corridor of white walls and soft lighting. 3 figures waited for her. 2 soldiers in dark uniforms and a woman in civilian clothes who smiled at her with warmth that seemed genuine. "Ambassador Tellus," the woman said. "I am Somi, and I will be your guide during your stay. Please do not be afraid. I know this must be overwhelming for you." Tellus studied the woman's face. 2 eyes, 1 nose, 1 mouth. Hair the color of night falling past her shoulders. Hands with 5 fingers, feet with 5 toes. The humans looked so ordinary, so unremarkable. They could have been any of a dozen species she had encountered during her diplomatic career. How could beings so simple have terrified the entire galaxy? "Thank you," Tellus managed to say. "I did not expect to be welcomed." "We have been waiting a long time for someone to come," Somi said. "We had begun to think no one ever would. Please, follow me. Admiral Yuna is eager to meet you." They walked through corridors filled with humans going about their daily lives. Tellus saw parents holding children, workers carrying tools, young people laughing together over shared meals. None of them seemed surprised to see her. None of them seemed afraid. They knew she was coming, she realized. They had been tracking her since the moment she crossed the boundary. Somi led her to a large room with windows that looked out over the planet below. An elderly woman stood at the window, her hands clasped behind her back, her silver hair pulled back in a tight knot. She turned when Tellus entered, and her eyes held a weight that spoke of centuries. "Ambassador Tellus," the woman said. "I am Admiral Yuna, commander of the Border Fleet and representative of the Republic Council. You are the first outsider to enter our space in 50,000 years. I hope you understand how significant this moment is." Tellus bowed in the manner of her people. "Admiral, I apologize for my intrusion. I did not mean to violate your borders. I came because my people are dying, and I was desperate enough to seek help from the Forbidden Zone. We know." Yuna gestured for her to sit. "We have been watching your space for a very long time. We know about the plague that is killing the Sarani. We know about the failures of your medical science. We know why you came." Tellus felt the blood drain from her face. "You have been watching us?" "For 50,000 years, Ambassador. We have had nothing but time." Yuna sat across from her, her movements slow and careful, like someone who had learned patience over centuries. "Did you think we would simply sit in our cage and wait? Did you think we would accept our imprisonment without trying to understand our captors?" "I did not think you would still be alive," Tellus admitted. The stories say you were destroyed. The stories are lies. There was no anger in Yuna's voice, only a tired sadness. We were not destroyed. We were not even defeated. We won the war, Ambassador. That is why they locked us away. Tella shook her head. That is impossible. The records say the 17 races united against you because you were dangerous, because you threatened the peace of the galaxy. We were dangerous, Yuna agreed. We still are. But we did not start that war. We were a young species, barely 2,000 years into space travel, when the elder races decided we were growing too fast. They were afraid of what we might become. So they attacked us, expecting an easy victory. She paused, and something dark moved behind her eyes. They were wrong. Tellus listened in silence as Yuna told the true history of the Great Silence. How humanity had fought back against impossible odds. How they had learned from every weapon used against them and created better versions. How they had pushed the 17 races back system by system until the elders faced a choice between total war and negotiation. They offered us a deal, Yuna said. Accept containment within our own space, with all our worlds and colonies intact, or they would trigger a weapon called the Sun Killer. It would destroy every star within 1,000 light years. Billions would die on both sides. Total extinction. And you chose containment, Telos whispered. We chose to live. We had children. We had dreams. We had a future worth protecting. Yuna's voice softened. So we agreed to their terms. We retreated behind the boundary. We allowed them to build their warning beacons and tell their stories about monsters. And we waited. For what? Yuna smiled, and it was the saddest smile Telos had ever seen. For someone brave enough to knock on our door. For someone desperate enough to look past the fear. For someone who needed our help badly enough to risk everything. She reached out and placed her hand on Telos's arm. We have been waiting for you, Ambassador. We have been waiting for 50,000 years. Telos looked into the old admiral's eyes and saw something she had not expected. Not hatred. Not anger. Not the desire for revenge. She saw hope, and in that moment, she understood that everything she had been taught about the humans was wrong. They were not monsters hiding in the darkness, waiting to devour the galaxy. They were prisoners locked away for a crime they did not commit, hoping that someday someone would remember they existed. Someone would come to set them free. I need your help, Tella said, her voice breaking. My people are dying. Admiral Yuna squeezed her arm gently. Then let us help them. The next few days passed like a dream. Tellus was given quarters in the station, a comfortable room with a window that looked out over the blue planet below. She was allowed to walk freely through the public areas, to eat in the common halls, to speak with anyone who wished to speak with her. Many did. The humans were curious about the outside galaxy. They asked her questions about other species, about technology, about art and music and food. They wanted to know everything, and they listened to her answers with the hunger of people who had been isolated for too long. In return, they showed her their world. A woman named Minji became her primary guide. Minji was a historian, a keeper of records, someone who had dedicated her entire life to preserving the memory of what humanity had been and what they had become. She was young by human standards, only 80 years old. But she spoke with the authority of someone who carried the weight of 50,000 years on her shoulders. We never forgot, Minji told her as they walked through the Hall of Memory, a vast museum that stretched for kilometers beneath the station's surface. The galaxy wanted us to forget. They erased our name from their records, burned our history from their archives. They thought that if they pretended we never existed, we would eventually believe it ourselves. She gestured to the walls around them, covered with images and texts and artifacts from every era of human history. But we are the memory keepers. We remember everything, every battle, every treaty, every lie they told about us. We wrote it all down, carved it into stone, and coded it into machines that will last longer than stars. We will never forget what was done to us. Tellus studied the images on the walls. She saw humans in primitive clothing, fighting with simple weapons. She saw them building ships, exploring space, meeting other species for the first time. She saw the joy on their faces when they discovered they were not alone in the universe. And she saw the betrayal when the elder races turned against them. Why did they fear you so much? She asked. You were so young, so small. How could you possibly have threatened the 17 races? Minji smiled sadly. We were too good at learning. That was our sin. When we encountered new technology, we did not just copy it. We understood it, improved it, made it our own. Every weapon they used against us became a weapon in our hands within months. Every strategy they employed was analyzed, adapted, turned back against them. She stopped before a large painting that showed a human fleet engaging a massive alien armada. The human ships were smaller, fewer, but they moved with a precision that made them seem like extensions of a single mind. By the end of the war, we were building ships that could match anything the elder races had created. We were developing technologies they had never imagined. In 2,000 years, we had almost caught up to civilizations that were millions of years old. Minji's voice grew quiet. That terrified them. They realized that if they let us continue, we would surpass them within centuries. So they decided to stop us while they still could. But the containment, Kella said. Why not just destroy you completely? They tried. Minji led her to another section of the museum, where weapons of terrible power were displayed behind thick glass. These are some of the devices they used against us. Planet killers, star burners, genetic plagues designed to wipe out our entire species. We survived them all. We adapted. We overcame. She turned to face Tellus directly. In the end, they realized they could not destroy us without destroying themselves. The war had cost them too much already, so they offered the armistice instead. Permanent containment. A cage instead of a grave, and you accepted. We had no choice. The Sun Killer was real. They showed us the weapon, proved it would work. Mutual extinction or peaceful imprisonment. What would you have chosen? Tellus thought about it. She thought about her own people, dying slowly from a plague they could not cure. She thought about the children she had seen in the human stations, laughing and playing, unaware of the darkness that surrounded their civilization. I would have chosen life, she said. So did we. Minji began walking again, leading Tellus deeper into the museum. But we also chose to remember. We chose to prepare. We knew that someday someone would come, either as a friend or as an enemy. We wanted to be ready for both. They entered a chamber that took Tellus's breath away. It was a war room filled with holographic displays showing the galaxy in perfect detail. Every system, every fleet, every military installation of every species was marked and catalogued. We've been watching for 50,000 years, Minji said. We know everything about the galaxy that imprisoned us. We know their weaknesses, their strengths, their fears. If they ever came for us again, we would be ready. General Taiwu stood at the center of the room, studying a display that showed the Sarani Collective. He was an older man with gray in his hair and scars on his face that spoke of battles Tellus could not imagine. He looked up as they entered, and his eyes were cold. Ambassador, he said, I understand you came here looking for help. I want you to understand something first. We have had 50,000 years to prepare for war. We have built fleets that could crush anything the galaxy could send against us. We have developed weapons that make the Sun Killer look like a child's toy. He stepped closer, and Tellus fought the urge to back away. If we wanted revenge, we could have it, We could sweep across the galaxy and burn everything that was built on our ashes. We could make them pay for every year of our imprisonment, every lie they told, every child who grew up never knowing the stars their ancestors came from. But you have not, Telos whispered. No. Taiwo's expression softened slightly. We have not. Because revenge would make us into the monsters they always said we were. And we refused to become what they wanted us to be. He turned back to the displays, his shoulders heavy with the weight of choices made and unmade. We will help your people, Ambassador. We will give you the cure you need. But I want you to understand what that means. When you return to the galaxy with proof that we still exist, there will be consequences. Some will want peace. Others will want war. The choice will not be yours to make. Then whose choice will it be? Telos asked. Taiwu looked at her with eyes that had seen too much. Everyone's. And that is what frightens me most. Minji led Telos out of the war room in silence. They walked for a long time before either of them spoke. He is not wrong to be cautious, Minji finally said. We have waited so long for this moment. We have dreamed of it, planned for it, feared it. And now that it is here, we do not know what comes next. What do you want? Telos asked. Not the Republic, not the Council. What do you want? Minji stopped walking and looked out a window at the stars beyond. I want to see the galaxy, she said softly. I want to visit the worlds my ancestors dreamed about before they were locked away. I want to meet the species we have only watched from afar. I want to live in a universe where we are not prisoners anymore. She turned to Telos with tears in her eyes. I want to go home, even though we have never been there. Even though home is just a word we learned from old stories. I want to know what it feels like to belong somewhere. Telos took the historian's hand in her own. Then help me, she said. Help me bring back the cure. Help me tell the galaxy what you truly are. Help me give you a chance to come home. Minji squeezed her hand tightly. We will try, she said. That is all we can do. Try, and hope that it is enough. On the morning of her 10th day in human space, Telos was summoned to a medical facility on the station's upper ring. Admiral Yuna met her at the entrance, accompanied by a young doctor whose name tag read Jiwoo. We have finished analyzing the plague that is killing your people, Jiwoo said as he led them through corridors filled with advanced equipment that Telos could not begin to understand. The disease is actually quite similar to something we encountered during our first century of isolation. One of the elder races deployed it against us as a final act of spite after the armistice was signed. Telos felt anger rise in her chest. They attacked you even after the peace was agreed? They called it an accident, Yuna said, her voice flat. A research sample that was supposedly lost during the war. It killed millions before we developed a cure. They entered a laboratory where several human scientists were working at various stations. In the center of the room, a small crystal glowed with soft blue light. This contains the cure, Jiwoo explained. The compound is universal in its design. It should work for any carbon-based life form, including the Serani. We have run simulations using the biological data your ship's computer provided. The success rate is nearly perfect. Telos stared at the crystal. Such a small thing that holds so much hope. You developed this 50,000 years ago? We have had a long time to refine it. Jiwoo handed her the crystal carefully. The data inside includes the formula, the manufacturing process, and detailed instructions for adaptation to Serani physiology. Your scientists should be able to begin production immediately upon your return. Telos held the crystal in her hands and felt tears burning in her eyes. Billions of her people had died from this plague. Billions more were dying even now. And the cure had been sitting here in the Forbidden Zone, waiting for someone to come and ask for it. Why? She whispered. Why would you help us? After what was done to you, after 50,000 years of imprisonment, why would you give us this gift? Yuna answered. Come with me, Ambassador. There is something I want you to see. She led Telos out of the laboratory and through the station to an observation deck that overlooked a large open area below. It was a park, Telos realized. Trees and grass and flowers grew in the artificial sunlight, and among them, children played. Human children, running and laughing and chasing each other without a care in the world. Those are the children of the Republic, Yuna said. The newest generation of a species that the galaxy tried to erase. They have never known anything but these walls, these stations, these few hundred worlds that we are allowed to call home. They have never seen an alien sky. They have never met a being from another species. She turned to face Telos. Until today. Telos looked down at the children. They were so innocent, so unaware of the history that surrounded them. They did not know about the war, the containment, the 50,000 years of waiting. They only knew the world they had been born into. We could have spent our isolation planning revenge, Yuna continued. We could have raised our children to hate the galaxy, to dream of the day when they would break free and make our enemies pay. Many wanted us to do exactly that. But you did not. No, we taught them to hope instead. We told them that someday, someone would come. Someone from the outside would reach out their hand, and we would have a chance to show the galaxy who we really are. Yuna smiled. You are that someone, Ambassador. You are the first hand reaching across 50,000 years of fear and silence. Telos felt the weight of that responsibility settling on her shoulders. What if the galaxy does not want to listen? What if they see your survival as a threat and decide to finish what they started? Then we will defend ourselves. We have the power to do so. Yuna's voice was calm, certain. But we will not strike first. We will not become the monsters they made us into in their stories. If there is to be war, it will be because they chose it, not us. She placed her hand on Telos' shoulder. We are asking you to be our messenger, Ambassador. Take the cure to your people. Save them. And then tell the galaxy what you found here. Tell them that humanity is alive. Tell them that we want peace. And if they refuse, then at least we will have tried. Yuna looked back at the children playing below. That is all we can do. Try to be better than what they expected us to be. Try to prove that 50,000 years of isolation did not break us, did not twist us into something dark and terrible. Try to show them that the stories were wrong. Telos gripped the crystal containing the cure. Her people were dying. Every moment she spent here was a moment someone else drew their last breath. She needed to return, to begin saving lives, to fulfill the mission that had brought her across the Forbidden's boundary. But she also understood that what she carried was more than just a cure for a plague. She carried the hope of an entire species, a species that had been wronged, imprisoned, forgotten. A species that had every right to hate the galaxy, but had chosen to help it instead. I will need proof, she said finally. More than just my word. The Council will not believe me without evidence. We know. Yuna nodded to someone behind Telos. That is why we have prepared a delegation. Telos turned to see 3 humans standing in the doorway. She recognized Minji, the historian, whose eyes shone with excitement and fear in equal measure. Beside her stood a young man in a pilot's uniform, barely more than a boy, with a face full of nervous hope. This is Junho. Yuna introduced him. He volunteered to be part of the delegation. He will be the first human to leave our space since the armistice was signed. Junho bowed to Telos in the manner of her people, a gesture she had not taught anyone. Ambassador, I have studied your culture my entire life. I have dreamed of this moment since I was a child. Please, let me help you show the galaxy that we are not their enemies. Telos looked at the young man's face and saw something she had not expected to find in this place of ancient wounds and long memories. She saw innocence, pure, simple hope for a future that might never come. "You understand the danger," she said. "If this goes wrong, if the Council decides that humanity's survival is a threat that must be eliminated, you will be far from home with no way to return." "I know." Junho's voice was steady. "But someone has to be the first. Someone has to take the risk. If not me, then who? If not now, then when?" Minji stepped forward. "I will go as well. I can answer any questions about our history, our culture, our intentions. I can provide evidence that will be difficult to dismiss. And I will remain here," Yuna said, "to ensure that our people are ready for whatever comes next. Whatever the galaxy decides, we will face it together." Tellus looked at the three humans before her. A young pilot full of hope. A historian carrying the weight of 50,000 years. An admiral who had waited her entire life for this moment. They were entrusting her with everything. Their future, their hopes, their very existence. "I will not fail you," she said. "I cannot promise success. I cannot promise peace. But I can promise that I will try with everything I have." Yuna smiled, and for a moment, she looked younger than her centuries. "That is all we ask. That is all we have ever asked." She extended her hand in a gesture that Tellus somehow knew was important to humans, a symbol of trust and agreement. Tellus took it. "Then let us begin," she said. "Let us show the galaxy what they forgot." The journey back to the boundary took 3 days. 3 days of silence, broken only by quiet conversations between Tellus and her human companions. Minji spent most of the time preparing documents, organizing the evidence they would present to the Galactic Council. Junho sat at the observation window, watching the stars pass by with wonder in his eyes. "You have seen these stars your entire life," Tellus said to him on the second night. "But never from this direction," Junho replied. "Never moving toward them instead of away. My whole life, I knew there was a wall around us. Invisible, but real. Now we are about to pass through it." He turned to her with a smile that held both fear and joy. "It feels like waking up from a very long dream." When they crossed the boundary, alarms began to sound immediately. The warning beacons screamed their ancient message, but now other signals joined them. Fleet signals. Military signals. The galaxy had noticed Tellus's absence. "Multiple vessels approaching," her computer announced. 17 distinct fleet signatures detected. "They are surrounding our position." Tellus had expected this. She had been gone for nearly a month, crossing into forbidden space and returning alive. The Council would want answers. Elder Voss's hologram appeared on her view screen within seconds. His ancient face was twisted with anger and fear. "Ambassador Tellus, you were presumed dead. You violated the most sacred law of our civilization. Explain yourself immediately, or you will be destroyed where you stand." "I found them," Tellus said simply. "I found what we forgot." Silence fell across every frequency. Every ship, every commander, every diplomat who had connected to the feed stopped and listened. "They are not monsters. Elder, they never were." Tellus stepped aside, revealing Minji and Junho standing behind her. "We turned them into monsters in our stories because we could not face what our ancestors did. We attacked a young species because we feared what they might become. When they fought back, we could not defeat them. We surrendered and trapped them. Then we told ourselves lies for 50,000 years." Junho stepped forward, his young face calm despite the weapons pointed at his ship from every direction. He had practiced this moment his entire life, studied every species, every language, every gesture that might help bridge the gap between his people and the galaxy that had imprisoned them. "My name is Junho," he said. "I am a human. 50,000 years ago, Your ancestors offered my ancestors a choice: die together or live apart. We chose life. We have spent the time since then preparing for this moment. The moment when we could look at you and ask a simple question." He paused, letting his words echo across the void. "May we come home?" The response was not immediate. Elder Voss's hologram flickered as he consulted with other council members. Other signals crackled with confusion, fear, anger. Some demanded that Telos's ship be destroyed immediately. Others wanted to hear more. Finally, Voss spoke again. His voice was careful, measured. "You claim the humans helped you. Prove it." Telos transmitted the data from the crystal. Medical files, research documents, manufacturing instructions. Everything the humans had given her. "This is a cure for the plague that is killing my people," she said. "The humans created it 50,000 years ago, when one of the elder races used a similar disease against them. They gave it to us freely, asking nothing in return except a chance to prove they are not our enemies." More silence. Telos knew that across the galaxy, scientists were analyzing the data. Politicians were arguing. Military commanders were calculating whether they could destroy the human civilization before it could strike first. Then a new signal joined the conversation. A young voice, speaking a language Telos did not recognize, but her translator rendered into words. "This is Commander Hana of the Veth Exploration Fleet. I have analyzed the medical data. It is genuine. If this cure works as described, it will save billions of Sarani lives." Another voice joined. Admiral Chorus of the Mora Collective. "We confirm the analysis. This technology is advanced, but not weaponized. The humans shared knowledge that could only be used for healing." One by one, voices from across the galaxy added their assessments. The cure was real. The humans had helped. After 50,000 years of silence, their first message to the galaxy had been an act of kindness. Elder Voss's hologram flickered again. His expression was unreadable. "Ambassador, tell us, what do the humans want?" Minji stepped forward. Her voice was steady, carrying the weight of her role as a historian, a keeper of memories. "We want to be part of the galaxy again," she said. "We do not seek revenge for what was done to us. We do not want to punish your species for the crimes of your ancestors. We only want what was taken from us: the chance to explore, to learn, to grow alongside the rest of the civilizations we once knew. And if we refuse?" Minji's eyes hardened slightly. "Then we will return to our space and continue waiting. We have been patient for 50,000 years. We can be patient for 50,000 more. But we hope that will not be necessary. We hope that the galaxy has changed since the time of our imprisonment. We hope that you are better than the stories we have told about you." That last sentence hung in the air. The humans had their own stories about the galaxy, their own memories of betrayal and pain. But they were offering to set those stories aside, to start fresh, to give the galaxy a chance to prove that it had grown beyond the fear that had driven it, to lock away an entire species. The decision was not made that day. It was not made that week. The debates raged for months across every council chamber, every parliament, every gathering of every species in the known galaxy. There were those who demanded the quarantine be reinforced. There were those who wanted to strike first, to destroy humanity before they could become a threat again. There were those who argued that 50,000 years was long enough, that it was time to let go of ancient fears. In the end, it was the Sarani who tipped the balance. The cure worked. Billions of Sarani who had been dying were saved. Families were reunited. Children who had been given up for dead grew strong and healthy. And when the Sarani Council voted on whether to support humanity's return, the answer was unanimous. The humans had helped them when no one else could. The Sarani would help them in return. One by one, the boundary beacons went dark. One by one, human ships emerged from the space that had held them for 50,000 years. Not war fleets, but explorers, diplomats, traders, families who had never seen the stars their ancestors came from. And at the front of them all, Junho stood on the bridge of the first official exchange vessel. He was older now, 5 years having passed since he first volunteered to cross the boundary. His face showed the marks of stress and hope and fear and joy that had filled those years. But his eyes were the same, full of wonder, full of possibility. Admiral Yuna appeared on his view screen. She was on the station, watching the fleet depart. Her expression held a peace that Junho had never seen before. "You did it," she said. "You actually did it." "We all did it," Junho replied. "Every human who kept hope alive for 50,000 years. Every ancestor who refused to let our history die. Every child who dreamed of seeing the stars beyond our walls." He smiled. "And every alien who was brave enough to give us a chance." He looked out at the galaxy spreading before him. Thousands of stars. Millions of worlds. Billions of beings who had been taught to fear his kind. "What do we do now?" he asked. Yuna's answer was simple. "Now we show them who we really are." The first human ship crossed into open galactic space. Its name was painted on the hull in letters that could be seen from 1,000 kilometers away. Hope. And behind it. A fleet of vessels followed, each one carrying humans who had waited their entire lives for this moment. They were not conquerors. They were not invaders. They were simply people who had been locked away for too long and were finally coming home. Telas watched from her own ship as the human fleet spread out among the stars. She thought about everything she had learned, everything she had seen, everything she had believed before she crossed the Forbidden's boundary. The humans had been called monsters. They had been called a threat. They had been locked away and forgotten for 50,000 years, but they had not forgotten themselves. They had not become what the galaxy feared. They had kept their hope, their dreams, their humanity. And now, at last, they had a chance to show the universe what that meant. Minji's voice came through her speakers. "Ambassador, thank you. For everything?" Tella smiled. "Thank yourself. You are the ones who chose to help instead of hate. You are the ones who gave us a cure when you could have given us war." "We had 50,000 years to think about it," Minji replied. In the end, the choice was easy. What choice? Minji's answer echoed through the void, a simple truth that had survived 100 millennia of darkness. The choice to be better than our pain. The choice to prove that we are more than what others made us. The choice to reach out with healing instead of harm. She paused, and when she spoke again, her voice was soft with emotion. That is what it means to be human. That is what the galaxy forgot. And as the first human ships disappeared into the depths of space, carrying their people toward a future no one had thought possible, Telas understood at last why the warning beacons had pulsed for 50,000 years, not because of what the humans might do,